Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Hello, and thank you for downloading The Horse Show here at Wisp Sports. This is Season 4, Episode 22, and I'm Chris Stafford. And you can join in the conversation at any time by following us on social media at Wisp Sports. Our guest this week is equine veterinarian Dr. Sally Hyman, who grew up in northeast Pennsylvania and began riding at the age of 4 when her parents made the mistake of putting her atop a horse at a local riding stable. She worked her way up through the pony divisions of Zone 2, riding any and all ponies that were tossed her way. In her later junior years, Sally competed in the Medal Maclay equitation division. She then attended Dickinson College and then the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine and received the George M. Palmer Prize upon graduation for excellence in equine medicine and surgery. After graduation, Sally completed a medicine and surgery internship at Reed & Associates in Palm Beach, Florida. Following her internship, she pursued a residency in large animal internal medicine at the University of Pennsylvania New Bolton Center, and she gained board certification in internal medicine in 2004, acupuncture certification in 2006, and her MBA in 2018. Sally has taught at the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine and the University of Sydney School of Veterinary Medicine. She is currently a senior associate at Total Equine Veterinary Associates in Leesburg, Virginia. And knowing Sally personally, I wanted to get her impressions of why there are so many women who take up the profession, and also how she planned her own career pathway. Sally, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, I thought it would be interesting to get a perspective from you because you've been a veterinarian now for how long?
23 years now.
Wow. Did you know when you were in vet college that that was all you wanted to do? It had to be equine and you were going to make it more and more specialized?
I knew from a very, very early age that I wanted to be a veterinarian, and then very early in my teenage years, I knew it was going to be an equine veterinarian. I didn't realize how specialized I would become at the time, but it seems that the profession has funneled us that way over the last few decades. So I'm happy to have had that opportunity.
Let's step back a little bit further in the rearview mirror then and talk a little bit about your childhood and what drove you down this pathway by the time you were a teenager. Were you a very horsey child?
I was. My parents made the mistake of taking me to one of those pony rides when I was about 3 years old. And, I got led around on some little fuzzy pony for 10 minutes and I was hooked. And that led to riding lessons and a show career. And then eventually to veterinary school.
So what did you do in your show career? Were you into eventing, charging down to the solid obstacles, or did you prefer them to fall?
Yes, no, I liked them to fall. So I went the junior hunter equitation route and left the jumping large fences to other people.
So when you were in your teenage years then, did you find that you had that sort of nurturing disposition that you wanted to take care of animals and it had to be in a scientific way?
Yes. My best friend and I, growing up, were the two little girls who saved every baby mouse, baby squirrel, baby rabbit that we could find in the yard, much to our parents' chagrin. So I think that really was telling as to where my career would end up.
But then it came time to graduate from high school. Talk a little bit about that. And I know, knowing you personally, I'd imagine you were very focused. You knew where you wanted to go. You knew the college you wanted to go to, the vet school you wanted to be at.
Yes, I grew up in Pennsylvania, so the goal was always to end up at the University of Pennsylvania Veterinary School. I did not enjoy high school very much, so I tried to get out of there as quickly as possible. So I graduated in 3 years. And then I wasn't quite as concerned about which undergraduate college I went to. I just wanted to find one that would take me with only having 3 years of high school. And I was very, very fortunate to find that in Dickinson College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
What was the climate like at that time, Sally, for women going into the veterinary profession?
It was actually becoming much more favorable at that time. I think about the women who, were really the pioneers, just really 20, 25 years ahead of me. So by the time I arrived at veterinary school, it was much more welcoming. We were actually the majority of the classes at that point. The ratio had switched so that there were more female students and male students at that point.
Did you have role models, or were you studying anybody's work at that point that inspired you and motivated you to follow that pathway?
There were veterinarians such as Midge Leach, who was definitely a pioneer for female equine veterinarians, and she was fortunately also a mentor to us at the University of Pennsylvania. And it was wonderful to see her, to see how she had really made inroads into the equine profession for women. She was highly, highly respected. And so she was somebody that I looked to when I was forming my career.
Talk a little bit about vet school and, how your career was evolving then. At that point, you were starting to think of what you specialized in. Like any doctor goes through that, don't they, of what they want to specialize in over time. Talk a little bit about what that journey was like for you.
When we're in veterinary school, obviously the first few years we have to study everything. It's a very generalized curriculum. And then when we hit our third year of school, we are allowed to track in different directions. So you can go down a small animal pathway, the large animal or equine pathway. And I found that as I was able to see more and more on the equine side of things, that I knew that's where I really wanted to be. It's not as glamorous a job as, my small animal colleagues who are specializing in, small animal surgery or such. But it was just really where I had found my passion. Even if you're out in the barns when it's 25 degrees and snowing out, it's just really where I found myself wanting to be.
What was it that really made that tick for you then?
I think the way that riders connect with their horses is what did it for me. And it doesn't matter if you are, a person who just trail rides their horse or you're an Olympic hopeful. There really is that connection between horse and rider. You're both working towards a goal together. You have to be focused together. There's a lot of training that's involved. And I just really enjoyed that connection between horse and rider. And it made me want to be able to help keep that relationship and that bond together so that, their equine athlete was able to perform for them.
You mentioned then when you started in vet school, Sally, that the majority of classes were women veterinarians. Talk a little bit about that and the shift towards more women, why you think that is and how that offers opportunities that women wouldn't otherwise have in the veterinary profession, because maybe is there more demand for jobs? How has it shaped the profession?
So it used to definitely be the male-dominated profession, especially back when most practices were mixed animal. It really used to be the whole James Herriot fantasy of veterinary medicine, where you were a veterinarian for everything. But as the profession started to specialize a little bit, I think that made it friendlier for women, where you didn't have to worry about being knocked down by some raging bull out on a farm. You could specialize more in the small animal realm or just with horses. So that made it a lot easier for women to get into the profession. I think women are very nurturing and caring by nature, so that was a good fit for us in the profession. And unfortunately, I think sometimes men found that there were fortunes to be made elsewhere and started leaving the profession when the money changed a little bit. It certainly is not the same lucrative profession that it was, 50 years ago. But women have a very caring and nurturing personality, I think, and it definitely leads us to this profession.
How did it affect the supply and demand when you graduated from vet school then, Sally? Did you find the direction that easy for you, the pathway then to go to specialize in equine veterinarian work?
Yes, actually. It seems like there now are more and more women in the equine specialty. Back when I first graduated, it still was very male dominated, but clients were very welcoming of a female veterinarian. I think a majority of them saw, again, that very caring, personable personality that women can bring to the profession. And it was rare that I would ever encounter somebody saying, "Oh, you're sending the woman doctor." So fortunately, I did not encounter very many obstacles at all.
And had you made up your mind then exactly what you wanted to do, what you wanted to specialize in? Because we've seen over the course of 20, 30 years, 40 maybe, how the specialisms just seem to keep cropping up. There's so many skills that you can continue to add on, and it is a continuous education pathway for veterinarians now, isn't it? So talk a little bit about the choices you made.
I think most of my choices were made because I love learning. So once I finished my veterinary degree, I then decided that I wanted to do a residency in something. And it was a toss-up between internal medicine and radiology. And internal medicine, one, because I love learning about all of the pathophysiology, the pharmacology, all of that. So I first went on and got my board certification in internal medicine for large animals. And then that was good because that allowed me to understand all of the physiology that would relate to performance. And then I went on and got my certification in veterinary acupuncture, which also helps with performance. There are lots of continuing education that don't necessarily lead to a certification, but certainly adds to your education. So I went and studied a lot on diagnostic imaging, so ultrasonography, learning how to read nuclear scintigraphy, MRIs and such. So for me, all of that was geared towards taking the bits and pieces from each of those specialties that I could use to help the performance horse. And again, that performance horse could be the one who performs out on a lazy Sunday trail ride, or the one who's gearing up towards the Olympics. But that way I could take the internal medicine pieces that would help with lung function and muscle function, use that with my diagnostic imaging so that I could understand if there was a tendon or ligament problem, and then use the pharmacology and the acupuncture and all of the other treatment modalities to help treat any issues that we might discover.
And we'll be back with Sally right after this.
This is Jenny Susser, clinical sports psychologist. Every other week, we will explore topics about sports psychology, high performance, and the human mind. Tune in and join us in a never-ending inquiry of how the mind matters in everything we do. You can find me on social media at Dr. Jenny R. Susser on Facebook, Dr. Jenny Susser on Twitter, and you can follow my blog at drjenny.com. Tune in to The Mind Matters here on Wisp Sports every other week, wherever you get your podcasts.
And you're listening to the Horse Show podcast with me, Chris Stafford. My guest this week is equine veterinarian Dr. Sally Hyman. So which of those tools in your toolkit now do you find you're using the most?
I think the diagnostic imaging is one of the most useful tools that I have. And we are very fortunate in today's day and age that we can carry just about every diagnostic imaging tool that we need on our trucks. So we have digital X-ray machines, we have digital ultrasound machines. All of that's right there at our fingertips. In our area, I have access to CT scanning, MRIs, nuclear scintigraphy. So our clients are very, very fortunate that we can diagnose very accurately most issues because we have the resources available to us.
Tell us about the practice you're with, Total Equine, what that comprises and how you made that choice to go there, in your career path.
Yeah, so I'm with Total Equine Veterinary Associates in Leesburg, Virginia right now, and we focus on excellent customer service and, bringing the best veterinary experience to the farm that we can for people. And now that we have all of these portable diagnostic and therapeutic tools with us, that's what we want to be able to provide. Not everybody has access to a trailer and can take their horse to, a local hospital. So we can bring just about everything except for the CT scanner or the MRI and the nuclear scintigraphy right to the farm. And that is always the goal, that we can provide excellent high quality diagnostics and therapeutics right on the farm. That's what drew me to this practice. That was always the philosophy and mission for it. And we've just been able to get better and better at it each year as new tools become available to us.
Which aspect of the job do you most enjoy and least enjoy, Sally?
The most enjoy is being able to help the client and patient be back together. So if there is an issue that is, putting distance between the rider's ability to be with the horse, there's a lameness, they're not able to do what they want to do. So if I can diagnose that and treat that and get that team back together and performing, I just love seeing that. The least favorite part of the job are the hours. This certainly is a 24/7, 365 kind of job, even if you are in a group practice or if you have outside emergency support. Sometimes there are just clients that you can't say no to, no matter if you're on call or not. You just go out and do it. And veterinary medicine is a very unpredictable practice. And we always joke that we think that horses wake up every morning trying to find a way to kill themselves that day. So you never know what interruptions you're going to find in your day, even if you have it perfectly scheduled.
Yeah, especially if it's a weekend or a holiday.
Yes.
All right. Well, now it's that time of year in the Northern Hemisphere anyway that we have the problem of dealing with the cold weather as well on farms. And I'm wondering now at this point, Sally, as winter really starts to get hold, what are the common situations that you're finding you're dealing with now, is there a pattern? And often, and I also want to talk about the patterns that you do get when you get infections or outbursts of diseases. Let's just talk about the cold weather issues that you face mostly.
This time of year, we find ourselves faced with more injuries, lacerations than at some other times of year. I think the cold weather gets the horses a little excited. They get out there, they get running about, they're kicking at each other, and that can lead to some injuries. This time of year, a lot of farms start putting out the round bales, and as the horses are gathering closer together and competing for resources, we often get into those little kicking matches again. So I make sure that I am well stocked for laceration repair this time of year. We certainly always have to be vigilant and watch out for colic this time of year. Again, those round bales get put out, horses put their heads into them and barely come up for a breath of air. So they're eating a lot of hay, and perhaps with the cooler weather, not consuming enough water, so they're getting a little dehydrated. So we worry about impaction colics this time of year. And then just making sure that horses are maintaining a good nutritional level and not losing too much weight this time of year, with the colder weather making them consume more calories.
So what's the answer right there to the big bale situation now? We make big bales out of convenience, but not necessarily the ideal way to feed horses by the sounds of things.
I think they're fine as long as one, your horse is vaccinated for botulism, because round bales can harbor the botulism bacteria. So we have to be careful about that. Two is to make sure you know your herd and don't put overly aggressive horses together, so that you reduce that chance of fighting. And if you think that you have that type of situation, then maybe your field needs to have 2 round bales so that horses can separate themselves out according to the pecking order of the herd.
What other vaccinations should people be aware of? I mean, they should know these things, but I think it's always good to be reminded of what that annual schedule should look like for vaccinations.
There are core vaccinations that most or all horses should get. Rabies would fall under that, tetanus for sure. And then, depending on where you live and what your risk is, you need to speak with your local veterinarian as to what those vaccines should be. Eastern and Western encephalitis, West Nile virus, Potomac horse fever, strangles, botulism, especially if you're feeding those round bales or you're in an area where it's endemic in the soil. So making sure that you protect your horse against the diseases that are in your area, and certainly the ones that can be zoonotic to people. Rabies, obviously, we want to make sure that they're all vaccinated for.
That's quite a few, isn't it? And as you said, consult your local veterinarian to know exactly what's happening in your area. So, Sally, what about some tips for our listeners for this cold weather and what they should be looking out for with their horses?
So one of the most important things is a water source for your horse. They need to have liquid water. Frozen water troughs do you no good, and horses cannot consume enough snow to get their daily requirements of water. So fresh, clean, unfrozen water, if possible to have trough or bucket heaters so that the water is at a temperature that they will drink. That's just absolutely critical for everything. Making sure that they have adequate forage. Hay is fermented in their GI tract and helps them to produce heat. So making sure that they're getting adequate nutrition out of it, but also that they're having that bulk source of heat for them. And then if you have a horse who has any aches or pains, if they're normally on some type of a joint supplement or anti-inflammatory, you definitely don't want to stop those over the winter, even if you are riding less, because that cold weather is going to make their muscles and joints ache a little bit more. So don't stop those just because you're not riding as much or maybe as intensely as you do the rest of the year.
And how about grain requirements for the horse that's resting and turned out?
Depending on the amount of work they would be doing or what the temperature in your area is, many horses will need to be supplemented. And there is a study that found that below what they consider the critical temperature, and that critical temperature of cold for your horse depends on whether they are clipped, what kind of hair coat they have, and what their baseline health status is. But for every 10 degrees below that critical temperature, you need to increase their grain consumption by about 2 pounds. Just to make sure that they're getting enough calories to be able to sustain their weight. A horse who is cold will start metabolizing their fat stores. So we want to make sure that we are giving them adequate nutrition to be able to replenish those stores.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the cold factor, of course, and if they have a full coat, how much do they need rugging up if they have a full coat?
Not at all. So cold weather is defined at about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and your healthy middle-aged horse of good nutritional status really won't feel cold until about 5 degrees Fahrenheit. So especially where I am here in the Northern Virginia area, most of our horses who are not clipped will not need a blanket for the majority of the winter time. That changes if there is significant wind or if there is rain. Both of those will reduce their natural hair coat's ability to keep that warm air layer of insulation against the skin. The wind will blow the warm air away. The rain will wet the hair down so that it can't fluff up and provide that layer of insulation. But most horses do not need to be blanketed, and in some cases, blanketing can actually be detrimental. If the blankets are heavy, it will push down on that hair coat and not allow the layer of insulation to be formed. And if the amount of insulation in your blanket isn't as good as or better than the insulation layer that they could provide, you're actually going to have a cold horse under your blanket. So we anthropomorphize a lot. We go outside and we shiver and we go, "Ooh, my horse needs a blanket." But in reality, nature has provided them with the most excellent blanket. And if they have shelter to get out of the wind or the rain, most of them won't need a blanket over the winter.
I touched very briefly on those diseases that seem to do their rounds from time to time, depending on where you are in the world, literally. Is there anything now that horse owners need to be aware of that's in the air, so to speak?
We have had a shift in the mosquito-borne diseases in our area this year. So we have seen Eastern encephalitis up and down the East Coast. We've also seen West Nile virus longer into the season than we normally do. We have been recommending that our clients vaccinate for both of those diseases more frequently this year. I am hoping that that is more due to the natural sylvatic cycle of these diseases that tend to have a 7 to 10 year frequency of an increase in prevalence, and not maybe due to change in our climate where, we're seeing longer, warmer summers in our area. it seems like we've, seen that happening up and down our eastern seaboard this year.
Let's look at your career path then now. What's on your to-do list? Where does your appetite for learning take you next, Sally?
Well, I've just finished my MBA. So
congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm thinking that I'm going to take a little break as far as the intense learning goes, but there's always new techniques, new therapies, new diagnostics coming around. So I think for the short term, I will just be doing some of our American Association of Equine Practitioners continuing education type meetings to just stay in tune to what's on the horizon for just general equine practice. I would, if I had the time and resources, I would love to go back and take the veterinary manipulation courses. That's what we call chiropractics these days. I think that would be one more value added service that would enhance everything else that I'm able to do right now. But I'm not sure that this old dog has any new tricks to learn right now. So,
well, never-ending pool, I'm sure, of opportunities out there, Sally. So thank you for taking the time to come on the show and share your journey with us, and for the tips. Very, very helpful tips as we get into the really cold winter season. So appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure.
Happy holidays from Wisp Sports.
And as the year comes to a close, we will be reviewing the outstanding events of 2019. I'll be joined by Molly Bailey, who is a senior reporter at the Chronicle of the Horse, to take a look back at the highlights of 2019. That's all coming up at the end of the year. And a reminder that you too can be part of the conversation here on the Horse Show podcast by dropping us an email to info@wispsports.com or posting your comments on social media at Wisp Sports. We would love to hear from you. I'll be back in a couple of weeks' time with another episode of The Horse Show before our final episode, which is that review of 2019. So until then, thank you for listening and helping us turn up the volume on women's sports. Goodbye for now.